Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Ron LeGrand back with another episode of the Mentor Podcast, dedicated to helping you make more money, make it faster, and retire very wealthy. Today's message is from me, and in fact, I'll be interviewing myself, which means I'll be teaching today on a subject called cash flow management, which of course is a very sensitive subject to many businesses where their cash flow is negative. Our objective today is to try to make sure that it's positive and to know what your break-even point is before the month starts, so you don't have to wait till the month is over and wonder if you made any money, which, my friends, is a very uncommon thing for most businesses who really have no idea what their numbers are. Now, I'm going to do 3 podcasts on business management subjects because of request from you. Today will be on cash flow management, but the next message will be on solving the biggest problems in real estate, followed by what's wrong with work. Now, today's message, frankly, pertains to any business, but of course, I am real estate investor prone because that's what I've been doing and teaching all my life. But I can assure you the message today can be adapted to whatever it is you do or whatever product or service you sell, online, offline, brick and mortar or not. So here we go. Let's start by making the case that if we don't have positive cash flow, we're not going to be around very long. And the one element to success is really not running out of cash, which means not running out of business gas. And that may sound strange, but to many businesses, they think they're profitable, but they're not, because there happens to be money in the bank today. And that does not mean that you are making a profit. So our goal here is to try to get a handle on what our numbers are and forecast them ahead of time, and then change them frequently as well. As I teach in my business management boot camp, we even have a flow chart on, or a spreadsheet on that, so that you can plug in and change your numbers as you go, which any business has to do. Profits and cash flow are just not the same. In the real estate business, a seller may make a $20,000 taxable net profit, yet they don't have any cash. Cash generated by profits is used for many reasons other than as a business expense, and sometimes, because there's money in the bank, I think you're making money. And in fact, sometimes if there's not money in the bank, you don't think you're making money, neither one of which happens to be true. So to stay ahead of the cash flow game, you first got to determine what your personal and business needs are, so you can tell whether you're getting ahead or digging a hole. You can't run a business effectively by simply spending what's available and hoping more money will come to handle it in next week's payables. So step number 1 is to decide what you need for your family and then set up a salary to handle it. I always teach that you should be paying yourself a salary out of a business entity that you set up. That is usually an LLC, but it also could be a C corporation. I know I have both, several. In fact, I've got multiple LLCs and 3 or 4 Cs, and your CPA would like for you to pay a salary out of it. Now, of course, that means you'll also be paying Social Security tax and FICA and FUTA and so forth. But in an LLC, the good news is you can take money out of it without any tax consequences whatsoever. But if you take it out of a salary, of course, you will be paying FICA and FUTA, and your CPA would suggest that you do that. So write this down. If you're taking notes, write down this note, because you're probably not going to hear this from anybody but me. If you're going to run a business, pay yourself first. That means that you are the most important expense in your business. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs making the mistake of leaving all the money in the business. And of course, it finds a way to evaporate if you do that. So the only purpose of a business is to support you, not vice versa. A business is on this planet to take care of its shareholders, and that would be you. All the rest of the things are just side benefits. So if you can't hold on to money and invest it personally, then what value will you be to your business when it gets in a down cycle and needs some short-term help? If you're broke and your business is broke, where are you going to get the help? And the job is simple: suck your business dry. Now, that doesn't mean you should foolishly spend it into bankruptcy, but it does mean you should take out as much cash as you can, leaving only enough in there to survive. And remember, you can always lend it back if you have it. You cannot lend it back if you don't have it. So again, if your business is a C corporation, be very careful about taking money out. In fact, your CPA will probably tell you the only way you want to take it out is through a salary, because you definitely don't want to pay yourself dividends. If you do, the corporation does not get a tax deduction, and yet you have to claim it as income. That's the term double taxation. But with an LLC, there's no such issue. So human beings run businesses. I'm guessing you are a human being, and that means you need the cash flow to feel like you're succeeding, and you can't succeed without cash flow. So again, take all you can get, but when you take it out, put it over in your personal accounts, and then go and invest it at high rates of return. In fact, if you happen to be in the real estate business, it's pretty easy for us to get a huge rate of return as long as we're active. Regardless of what business you're in, you can get a double-digit return even being passive. I mean, there's plenty of things you can do with money, but you don't feel like you're getting anywhere if you don't have money in your personal bank account. And I can tell you for sure that you will sleep better when you have that money sitting over in your personal bank account, and so will your spouse. So if you have money in your personal side, you're going to look stronger. If you ever want to actually go get a loan, banks are going to look at you totally different if you have money in your personal side than if you don't. And I'll say it again, if you leave that money in that entity, that money is going to find a place. It always does. I hear people saying, well, I got to put all my money back in my business. No, that is not what I suggest you do. I suggest you go make more money in your business and then take more out of it for yourself. So decide what you got to have to live on. And frankly, that should become a fixed number that comes out of your business every single month. And just like any other expense, it's there, and you factor it into your break even. And if you don't factor that into your break even, then you're kind of just cheating yourself and lying to yourself, because if you're in business, you got to make money. Now, I know what you're saying. What if I don't have the cash flow in the corporation to pay myself? Well, obviously you can contribute it and pay yourself back and call it a loan. Or you can just let it accrue and take it out when you can get it. But either way, I'd like to see it on your books as a fixed monthly expense. So it's part of all the others, so you'll know what you need to bring in every month to break even. And that is next on the list. That is, we got to figure out what our fixed monthly expenses are. Now, I'm not talking about personal here, so make note. We are only talking about your business operating entity here. Business operating entity. We just covered your personal expenses by taking out a salary to cover them and then some and to live on. But your operating entity expenses, there are fixed and there are non-fixed. You must figure out what your fixed are and put them on a chart. If you're one of our Gold Club members, there's a spreadsheet on there you can fill out. And those are the expenses that are pretty much the same every single month. Now, again, these are fixed, so you can kind of get a handle on them pretty quick. But then there are those that are not fixed. And those are things like, for example, at Global Publishing, we have a whole list of fixed expenses. But then again, our marketing is not a fixed expense. And let's say we pay commissions, that's not a fixed expense. So we have to kind of figure out what our fixed are and then guess at those numbers based on what we've done in the past. Now, if you're saying to me, well, I don't have a past, I don't have anything to go on, well, the answer is you're going to wing it until you do have something to go on, and then you're going to adjust it as you go so you do know what your fixed expenses are, and then you'll quickly get a handle on the non-fixed expenses. So once you get your fixed expenses done, then you can decide how much am I going to spend on marketing, and honestly, that applies to any business, whether it be real estate or whatever. How much am I going to spend to acquire customers? In real estate, that means how much am I going to spend to get sellers coming to me, and then how much am I going to spend to sell houses? And fortunately, in today's world, we don't have to spend much money on either one of those things. But I can tell you in the past, I spent a lot of money on both of those things. So I have a restaurant, and I sometimes compare it to the real estate business. And boy, there really isn't any comparison because the real estate business is such small overhead, which I'm going to come to here in a little bit, such huge gains with just small amount of work. The opposite is true in the restaurant business. Huge overhead, huge front-end investment, huge risk, small gain, if any, and a lot of risk. So there's no comparison whatsoever. But what I do know is that at my restaurant, which is Iggy's here in Jacksonville, in fact, if you make your way to Jacksonville for one of our trainings, you're going to eat at Iggy's, largely because you don't have any choice. I'll force you to go eat at Iggy's. And yes, I usually buy, so relax. But I know that I got to gross $100,000 a month just to break even. That's what I said, $100,000 a month just to break even. And we know what those numbers are at Global. I know what those numbers are at any of my businesses. So if you're going to be in business, you should always know your numbers. All right, well, so once we got our fixed, and once we got our guesstimate on our non-fixed, such as marketing and whatever else is in your business that is non-fixed, well, now you know where you're at. So it's easy to determine what your break even is, but don't forget that salary number. And remember, you got to pay yourself first. So if you already are running a business, it's pretty easy. You can just search your payables and make a list of what they are now. But if you're not in business, then you're just going to have to wing it and make sure you continually change it every month. Well, you should do that anyway, but till you get a handle on it. So once you determine your break even, it's a whole lot easier for you to know now at what point of the month am I going to actually start making money. And never try to outguess your cash flow by assuming that things are going to happen. For example, in real estate, I see people making the mistake of assuming that a closing is going to happen so they get a big check. And of course, I can tell you from experience, the worse you need that closing, the better chance you got of not getting that check. So do not ever spend money until you get it. It's not yours until it's in your bank account. It's definitely not yours because it is promised and it looks like it's going to happen. Be very careful that you don't spend the money before you get it, thus creating chaos and crisis management. Happens too many times. And when if you're in real estate and you're going to do things outside of your operating entity, for example, if I want to buy a house and pay cash for it, and then I want to rehab it, I can't do that out of my operating entity. If I do it out of my operating entity, all I am doing is taking money that is already spent, but the bills haven't arrived yet, and paying for this house or paying to repair this house with money that I don't have. It might be in my bank account, but it's not my money. And a lot of other businesses are the same way. People spend money that is really already spent, thinking that something's going to happen to replace it quickly. And then, of course, Murphy steps in. Don't spend it until it's your money. As a real estate investor, I teach people, go get private money to buy houses for cash and fix them, and then some. When we borrow private money from a private lender, which is a human being, not somebody in the loan business, we always borrow more than we need. That way we have money to buy, money to fix, and money left over, plus money for holding costs. We always borrow more than we need from a private lender because it's based on loan to value ratio anyway. It has nothing to do with credit. Credit's irrelevant to private loans. But if you don't borrow more than you need, I promise you, you're going to wish you had in case Murphy comes in and you find out you need it. Mistake a lot of investors make is that they start writing checks out of their pocket to do this. Pretty soon, they're managing with chaos and they don't have the money, so they make stupid decisions. And of course, if you don't borrow more than you need, you don't have any cash flow to do all the other stuff with as well. So if you're going to do anything outside of your operating entity, you need to find out. Ask yourself, where am I going to get the money to do this? And do not take it out of your operating entity. If you do, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. All right. So now let's say that I've got, I'm going back to real estate here. Let's say that I'm buying houses that do not have an escrow account. In other words, nobody is collecting for taxes and insurance. Well, if that's true, and I'm not going to quickly turn these things around and cash out of them, Well, guess who has to pay the taxes and insurance? Yep, you know, somebody you know and love. You should have a separate account to make monthly deposits for your insurance and for your taxes. Taxes and insurance come due every year, whether you have the money or not. And if you're not careful, you can get yourself in a big hole, have a great big old tax bill, don't have the money to pay it. And then everything gets behind. It's a domino effect, and it won't end. It won't end well. So a smart real estate investor will set money aside that he knows or she knows is already spent, but it might be a while before the bill comes in. My friends, that same thing holds true regardless of what your business is. There's things that are coming up. You know they're coming up. Then you should make sure the capital is set aside to handle them so that when they come, you're actually proud of yourself because you got the money sitting there. So set up, and by the way, I do not want this money sitting in your operating account. Now, I can tell you right now, your CPA will say, well, we just leave it all in this account and we'll just account for it differently on our books. Baloney on that. If that money is sitting in that operating account, you know as well as I do what's going to happen to it. It's going to find a home very quickly. Get it out of your operating account, get it in another account. In fact, why don't you put it right on the checks, escrow account, so you can keep reminding yourself. Look, it's your money. Of course, you can do with it what you want. But I'm telling you, if you don't get it away from the other money you spend on a regular basis, it's going to evaporate. So again, don't spend money that's already spent. And then I see a lot of folks operating on borrowed money. Big, big mistake. When I buy a house and pay cash for it, and I borrow the money from a private lender, I intend to fix that house and sell that house and cash out of it and pay that money back quickly. However, the mistake I see a lot of investors making is they will go refinance houses. Number one, they're violating my rule, and that means they're guaranteeing the debt. And they refinance them for 80% of their value and pull all the cash out of them. However, the money finds a way to evaporate quickly, but the debt stays on for years and years and years. And all they're doing is borrowing money to survive. And my friends, borrowed money is not profit. You cannot make profit until you sell something. And borrowed money is not selling anything. And the next thing you know, you're doing what I call the cash flow shuffle. You buy a house, refinance it, spend the money, buy a house, refinance it, buy a house and refinance it. And as long as you're continually buying the house and refinancing it, by the way, I might add, greatly increasing your personally guaranteed debt, which on my planet is a huge, in fact, the number one biggest mistake. That all works well as long as you keep buying, refinancing. However, when you can't buy or the bank cuts you off, now what? You're in a mess because your cash flow just came to a screeching halt, but your debt remains out there for years and years to come. Do not make that mistake. Do not make that mistake in any business. Just remember, borrowed money is not your money, nor is it profit. It's a way to achieve an end, and that end must be to make a profit. The best way to fix cash flow permanently is to create monthly streams of passive income that don't require you to go to work. And once that passive income gets to the point to where it actually meets your financial needs, then obviously the pressure is off of you, and you have just almost overnight, well, it seemed like it's overnight anyway, become financially independent. In my opinion, you cannot become financially independent until that passive income exceeds your living needs. Because as long as you have to get out of bed in the morning and go to work, you will never be financially independent. Because when you quit, your income quits. In fact, that's what I see we have a lot of doctors and surgeons and so forth coming to us on a regular basis, and ultimately they all come to the same conclusion. Holy moly, when I stop working, now what? Okay, well, you might be saying, well, they spent years, building a retirement income and putting money away and so forth. Oh, yeah, really? And go talk to some of them. They're just like all the rest of us. They make money, they spend money. The more they make, the more they spend. Next thing you know, there's not much left. May have accumulated a little savings over the years, but certainly not enough to retire on. So now here comes that ugly truth. I can't quit working. Or if I do, what am I going to do? Because I don't have enough money to sustain me for the rest of my life, nor do I have the monthly income to sustain me. So I've always said, take care of today's cash flow needs first. And the thing we got to focus on if we want to not worry about cash flow is income. Income is not equity. Income is required to pay the bills and to make you feel like you're making money and to feel like you're rich. You know, you don't need $1 million in the bank to feel like you're rich, but you must have way more money coming in every month than you need to spend out, many times what you need to survive on. And then you will begin to feel like you're rich, and ultimately you will be if you start living that lifestyle because of income that you've built that is coming in every month with or without your assistance. I've often said, I want multiple streams of income, and frankly, I'm always looking for the next one. And I have several streams of income. I would like to have more, but I can promise you that when you got money coming in every month, and you sleep better at night, you think better at night, your relationships are better, and heck, even your sex life is better because you're a whole lot easier to be around. So I'm a strong believer in multiple income streams. There are a bunch of them within real estate, and there's always a bunch of them outside of real estate, and I do both, and I encourage people to do both. I've been doing real estate now for 37 years, and I wished I'd have started building monthly residual income about 36 years earlier, but I didn't. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made is that I did not build that income quick enough. So write this down if you're taking notes. If you're going to be in the real estate business, and I hope you are, but even if you aren't, you should ask yourself, what can I do to create a passive monthly income stream? And start working on putting as many answers down to that question as you possibly can. Let's talk about a few in the real estate business. For all of our listeners who happen to be students of ours, you know that when you buy or lease option a property from a seller and then lease option it to a tenant buyer, you collect a big multi-thousand non-refundable option deposit, and those are good. And believe me, I love those, but that is not monthly income. The problem with that is you have to keep doing it or you don't get those big checks. However, when we put tenant buyers in the house and we collect several $100s more than we're paying out on the underlying debt, that is monthly cash flow that you can depend on. And when we put tenant buyers in there who are responsible for their own repairs, that keeps that monthly cash flow from going into the house. Instead, it goes into your bank account. In real estate, we can do both ugly house deals as well, but there's no cash flow in ugly house deals except that big check. When you wholesale a house, which for you non-real estate people, that means you just put an ugly house under contract and flip it to a rehabber and get a check for 10, 15, 20,000 bucks, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But what happens to get more money? You got to go do the same thing again. Just like a doctor, he has to get them to go to work every day. So as long as I have to get up and go to work, that is not residual income. That is not passive income. Same with rehab. Get a big check, but I only get one. Then I got to go back and keep on doing it. So, but when I install a tenant buyer in a house, I get checks for years and years and years to come, and other income streams that I'm not going to talk about today. And that's just lease optioning them out. I could also sell them with owner financing and create that monthly spread that could go on for years and years with absolutely nothing to do but collect the payment and probably make the payment underneath. There's also a few other income streams right within real estate. We haven't even got to commercial yet, and I won't, but gosh, commercial properties that produce income literally can set one up for life and provide for their heirs as well. For example, apartment complexes or shopping centers or whatever. And honestly, most people don't think that's within their wheelhouse, but I'm telling you it is. And if you're interested in that, look up my commercial boot camp that I do once a year. But there's in fact, one of the hot things going on today in single family house business to create cash flow is Airbnb. I mean, it is really smoking. In case you don't know what that is, that's when you rent or buy a house and then you rent it out by the night using Airbnb.com. They do all the work. They collect the money. They'll even turn you on to somebody that'll do the turnover for you. And you put electronic locks on the house so you can literally change the code from your cell phone. I mean, today is purely cash flow. And honestly, you can do it from anywhere to anywhere, and you don't have to get too physically involved in it. A great income stream, and they build quickly. And I mean, just the amount of money you get is ridiculous on some of these testimonials that I'm getting from students. And by the way, that has nothing to do with vacation rentals. Airbnbs don't have to be anywhere near a vacation area, because all you're doing is taking a hotel room and putting somebody in your house instead. So wherever there's hotel rooms, there's Airbnbs, and they're growing fast. The Airbnb is the Uber of the hotel business industry. And then, of course, my favorite is information marketing. Now, I got to tell you, information marketing has been very, very good to me, but upside to that is it's ongoing cash flow. Downside to that is I don't want to see anybody selling products that they are really not qualified to sell. I see so many so-called gurus out there right now selling real estate stuff, for example. And if you take a look at what's going on in their life, they really shouldn't be selling it, because you can't go out here and do 2 or 3 house deals and become an expert in it all of a sudden. And on that, next thing you know, all you're doing is giving bad advice to folks that they're paying you good money for. And I don't want to see that happen. But I love information marketing, which simply means I'm selling information in exchange for money. And obviously that information has to be of value to people, or they're not going to exchange their money for it. And that's exactly what we do here at Global Publishing, and have been doing for, I've been buying houses for 37 years, and I've been selling information for 30 years. But it was 7 years into my business before I qualified to start teaching, and it was kind of by accident. But I got to tell you, it's been very good to me. So at some time in your life, and regardless of what industry you're in or what you're good at, you might want to think about this information marketing business, because it actually makes me more money than real estate. And I am certainly not ashamed to admit that. But on the other hand, real estate has been very good to me as well. Both of them have residual income in it, and both of them have other large incomes as well. Now, I have a restaurant. As long as that thing is operating and making a profit, I guess you could call that residual income, as long as you're not the one in there slaving away. If I had to actually work in my restaurant, you can bet your bippy there's no way I'd have a restaurant. I can assure you of that. If I have to work in it, it's over. I'm going to go find something that is better to create better cash flow than that. Anyway, let me see. We've covered figuring out what your break even is, so you know what you got to make. And we've covered paying yourself first. So let me see what else I want to touch on here. Just a couple of quick tips. Number one, if you are going to explore the house business, come see me. In fact, if you are ready to explore the information marketing business, you should come to Papa as well, because I teach a lot of people about that business and help them grow their information marketing business. I even have a mastermind group on that called Platinum Inner Circle. But if you're not ready for that yet, and you haven't explored real estate yet, you might want to do that too, because honestly, there's no company better qualified to help you get there quicker than us, Global Publishing, and we're just automated to the point to where there's not really much for you to do anymore. But here, make a note here. Residual income, write this down. The longer you own a house, the more money you'll make. No exceptions. The longer you own the house, the more money you'll make. Sometime I'll actually do some examples and show you what I'm talking about. But the money comes from the growth. It comes from the residual income. It comes from the depreciation and all of the advantages of owning the property without having to do the management work on the property. And that's the world we live in today. And if you are looking for additional income streams, write this down. Make sure the business that you're in has the potential to drastically increase your cash flow. Or perhaps you might want to be looking for a different business, or figuring out how to make that happen in the business that you're in. Obviously, we do that in real estate, but there's a lot of ways to make money. But I see people working so hard in businesses that have no chance of ever making them rich, or in fact increasing their cash flow to the point to where they can quit working. Make sure that the vehicle you got can get you there. If you ever want to make any real money, you must first put yourself in a position to do so. And unfortunately, many of these franchises out there and businesses people get into do not put them in a position to make any real money. In fact, I call those golden turds. Flush yourself of them quickly. All right, now look, I'm not going to do sales pitch here, but you should know that I do have a 3-day event twice a year called Business Management Boot Camp. And I just happened to, if you listen to this podcast, I've got a special offer for you, but you're going to have to go do some research on it. I do it twice a year. I do it in June and I do it in November. And it's all about the subjects that I'm going to be covering here the next 3 podcasts, plus much, much, much more. And I still teach that thing personally. Kind of enjoy teaching it because people tell me it's one of the best boot camps they've been to, because you ain't going to get this stuff anywhere else except from the old guy here that's been around and learned all this stuff the hard way. You can bring a guest for free. And right now, since you listen to this podcast, write this down. You can get a $500 discount just by calling Angela at 800-567-6128. That's Angela, 800-567-6128. And if you need more information on it, you can go get that at thementorpodcast.com/bizmanagement, BIZMGT. And there they'll have laid out what all takes place in that thing. But listen, if you are interested in running your business more effectively and growing your business, you need to be there. Now, look, I'm real estate oriented. I can tell you that right now. We will be discussing the real estate business, but what we teach in that applies to any business. I don't really care what product or service you sell, because businesses are businesses. The products and the services change, but the businesses are all run alike. And by the way, if you think you can't afford it, that's probably the reason you should be there. And because marginal shifts sometimes can make massive differences in your business. And I'm sure if you think you know how to run a good business, well, so did I. But I was dead wrong. That stupid attitude cost me, I can't tell you how many millions of dollars that one cost me, making stupid mistakes because I refused to ask help and learn the stuff that I thought I knew, but I didn't know. You just don't know what you don't know. For example, it took me 4 restaurants to get one right. Man, was that costly, ever costly. It took me 2,000 houses to even learn how to do that right. And 20 years, I might add. And 5 early business failures to figure out that maybe I ain't doing something that I should be doing. So anyway, you can either get help or you can not get help, but take me up on that offer right now while you got a chance. But you got to mention that you're on this podcast now. So when you call Angela, say, hey, I just listened to Ron on the podcast and tell me more about this business management thing. All right. So anyway, that's it for now. So if you have questions on that, get them to our office and I'll get you the answers back as soon as I can, which will probably be within the next 24 hours after I get them. All right. One more time, 800-567-6128, $500 off. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that if you're a Go Club member, you can even apply that to the balance for up to half of it. My goodness, pretty soon I'll be writing you a check. So call them right away and they'll tell you when the next one is coming, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for listening.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.